My
Oh, yeah,
apologies.
that's right. Woo. All right. Acknowledge. All right. Cool. Do you want me to go back or are we good?
I think we're probably good.
Okay. So the idea is to take that national water model that has been running since 2014 on, mega servers and weather service headquarters, and use that to sort of come up with actual mapping of where water might be on a continental scale. So this is no small task, right? Like this is a heavy lift, and it came about because uh, you know we did a series of proofs of concept, and eventually Congress said, "Well, okay, so then do it already." And so we're on a 4-year program. I'm going to skip the exciting science bit, but we're on a 4-year. Don't get nauseous. Okay, I'm going to come back, but we're on a 4-year program here to roll this out. And Southern Vermont is included in this sort of lime green area, which is in the very first 10%. So we're on the very front end of this. This is all very experimental as far as these services being rolled out for the United States. So part of what I'm here to do is show you what's available, and then the other part is to ask you for your feedback. So when flooding happens, to take a look at this and help me provide feedback to the people running the models at headquarters and say, this is where it worked great and this is where it stinks, and let's figure out how to make it better across the board, because this is very much this is an experiment that's happening in real time. So let me go back now that I've gone way forward. So just as level setting, the Weather Service calls this flood inundation mapping, but just to be clear, the first round of this is actually flood extent mapping. And I mean, I've been accused of being, pedantic, but I think in this case, it's really important to note the distinction, which is flood extent mapping is your footprint. That's the water footprint on the map. Flood inundation mapping gives you information about the depth. And to be clear, this first round of experimental services does not have any depth information. Absolutely recognize that that's critical for what you all do and the services you provide. But that is just not something that we're able to model right now. There's a lot of work that's being done right now to figure out how to incorporate information about bathymetry. In other words, so basically right now, the modeling that we did just assumed the water surface per the DEMs, per the digital elevation models, assumed the water surface was as deep as the channel got, right? And we all know that's not right. So there's some information that we still need to understand how deep the channel is in various places. And that's what is needed to sort out before we get into actual flood inundation mapping. So I think I'm probably going to mislabel it from here on out and keep calling it flood inundation mapping, but in fact, it is flood extent mapping. So it's the footprint of water on the map. And then the other thing is that there's two different pieces of flood mapping, and that is dynamic versus static. So dynamic is produced on an event by event basis to reflect current or forecast conditions, versus static flood mapping, which is maybe a library of maps that you could take off the shelf at any particular time and look at. Maybe if you have flood inundation mapping for related to a reservoir potential failure, that kind of thing. That might be a static inundation map that's available to you, but that's not what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about flood extent mapping, and it's dynamic. So now that we're good so far, by all means, throw stuff in the chat or raise a hand or whatever you want to do if you want to flag me down or have questions as we go through this. Convinces me that people are awake. All right. So here's sort of your menu of what's available starting. It's been available starting the 1st of October. So there's these 3 different flavors of FIM, one of my colleagues calls it, flavors of FIM. So we have the latest analysis, which is an attempt at taking the current models and assessing what might be flooded right now or per the latest model run. Best estimate of current conditions. It's just a computer model. So that's basically garbage in, garbage out, right? So if our current condition, our observations are incomplete, other information is not available as far as rainfall amounts, that could cause issues with the latest analysis. So that's latest conditions, current conditions. Then there's two flavors of forecast flood inundation mapping. There's the National Water Model, which I think is basically the bulk of what's going to be useful to you all in Southern Vermont, which is that water model that I was talking about that's been running since 2014 for the entire continental United States. Take that information and run it through our scheme to figure out what the flood extent is in various locations based on digital elevation models. So it offers inundation potential at every stream reach that we have National Water Model information for. The downside is it's based on a single model rainfall forecast. So I don't know if you're enough of a weather nerd, maybe you watch the Weather Channel and they talk about the Euro or the GFS or these different weather models. Well, this National Water Model only uses one of them. So if that one weather model gets wrong how much rain we might have or where that rain might fall, then everything else that it puts out is going to be wrong too, right? So we're very much relying on one piece of information. And there's work going on right now to try to figure out how we can come up with what they call an ensemble, right? Like, so the range of all possible outcomes, how to feed that into the models to come up with a range of possible inundation maps. So that's down the road. And then the final flavor is this River Forecast Center FIM. So the very few locations where you actually have a river forecast point where our folks at the office in Norton, Massachusetts are actually reviewing the forecasts and providing river level outputs for you. That gets substituted in this National Water Model at the places where we actually have human interaction. And that gets run through their scheme, their mapping scheme. So that actually has human skill and forecast review behind it. The downside is, as you see here, it's only for the few points where we actually have river forecast points. Clear as mud. So this kind of just gets, I have 3 slides here that kind of just get more in depth with each of them. I don't know that we need to, hang on. My sister's calling me. I'm going to not answer. I don't know that I'm going to get too far in the weeds here, but there are some good examples, I think. So this is actually the East Kentucky, if you see this map, this East Kentucky flood event from last summer. And all the yellow areas are places where the modeling believes that there is flooding going on, so water out of its banks. And the opacity is kind of cruddy here, so you can't quite tell what's behind it, but there is river behind it, and it is certainly into areas of town. This is Jackson, Kentucky. Can you see my cursor when I move it around too? Or yeah, okay. So this is downtown Jackson, Kentucky. So a rip-roaring downtown of, I want to say, somewhere on the order of 2,500 people. I used to live right here, and a good portion of downtown actually flooded with this. So this is an attempt at this is the latest analysis, they're calling it. So this is an attempt to model what is happening right now as far as flooding. And there's actually an archive of this. So after an event, we can go back and look for the past 14 days, what's the highest that this analysis thinks the river got. And this is where I've been going after we've had flood events since we had this available to try to review and see, okay, how is this doing? Is this mapping places that did flood? Is it mapping places that didn't flood? How's this performing? So I think this is a really valuable tool, and it's available every hour. So the next thing, this is what I was talking about from the National Water Model. This is the raw model output. Basically just shows you flood mapping, your flood footprint, the highest that it's going to get over the next 5 days. And then the downside is, I think, as I mentioned, there's no real-time quality control. It's fully automated. It runs through our National Water Model and then through the scheme to put the footprint on the map. And it runs every 6 hours. And then the River Forecast Center, again, not too many places where this will be applicable in Southern Vermont, but that runs every hour and looks for the latest River Forecast Center forecast and substitutes that into the scheme from the National Water Model. So I think I kind of covered a bunch of this already. Depth of flooding is not yet available. We're just talking about the footprint. Every one of these services based on one weather and water forecast. So if the rainfall forecast is out to lunch, the forecast is going to be out to lunch. And I think we dug into this a little bit at the last meeting. It's not regulatory and it's not related to the FEMA maps. So it's a best estimate of current and forecast conditions. So not attempting to figure out what the 100-year or 500-year, or I know we're not calling them that anymore, floodplains are. So let me see here. There's a billion other limitations, but I think what I'd like to do is actually show where, let's see if I get myself confused. So this is where, right now, the best place to see them is this national viewer, our national GIS viewer. And I'm going to take you there right now, but first, eventually in the spring, there's also going to be an update to our website. And if you want to learn more about it, there's a story map here. I can send this presentation, or maybe just a link to the story map that describes the updates coming to our webpage. So hopefully it'll be more user-friendly. But in the meantime, we have the GIS viewer, or if you are GIS savvy, you can pull it into whatever you're messing around with in your GIS and pull in our mapping as a service into whatever you've already got going on. I know some people are using, if they already have footprints mapped or roads or other things like that mapped in their GIS, they can pull our services in and overlay that right on top of there. So up to you how you'd like to use it. I'm going to demonstrate the viewer a little bit, but everything you need to know about the services are here. Maybe I'll just send these two links, the OWP operations link, and I'll send you the story map.
Great, Britt, and I'll put them into the minutes when I send them out to everybody.
Beautiful. I'm just trying to think about the least foolish way to do this. Yeah, okay. Perfect. Thank you. So let's look at the actual viewer. And so any questions so far? So this viewer, I don't see anybody coming off of mute. So this viewer is really overwhelming. This is like everything about water that you can find in the entire weather service all crammed into this one viewer. So when you open it up, it's way zoomed out like this. It has 8 trillion layers all on, and that you're trying to rifle through here. So the first thing that I usually do just to get a clean slate is I hit clear layers and I hit collapse folders to just give myself a better overview. And then I'm going to do a little bit of zooming in here. And this is I'm just using my scroll bar, and you can pan and zoom like you would on Google Maps or wherever. So is there any flooding going on right now in Southern Vermont? This is a pop quiz. Nope. Right. So what is going to show on this map? Nothing, right? Absolutely nothing, because this is supposed to be showing current and forecast flood conditions. So there's absolutely nothing on this map. If there were information here about flood inundation, you could click this little caret right here next to flood inundation maps. And then you have these 3 are the 3 flavors of flood inundation mapping that we talked about, these top 3 here. And then you can also look, this coverage domain actually tells you this is where we expect flood inundation mapping within this red line here. We expect flood inundation mapping to be available were there to be flooding, right? So right now, absolutely nothing on the map, as one would imagine. So that being the case, I took the liberty of finding some cases here, and I think this one might be more interesting. The interface is a little bit different, but I think this might be of more interest here. And this is the flood inundation mapping from the 10th of July of 2023 at 2 in the afternoon, the model run from 2 in the afternoon. And right now we're showing the current conditions as well as the maximum conditions for the next 5 days. And you can't tell which is which in the symbology for this, but I can turn one off So let's see here. I turn off the next 5 days, and you can see the forecast on the mapping on the Connecticut there was a forecast, right? So that just pops back on again here when I pop it on. That's the forecast. That's the worst case scenario for the next 5 days. And what remains when I turn that off is what the estimate is for the current conditions at 2 in the afternoon on July 10th. So unfortunately, I can't mess with the opacity here. So we're gonna have to use our imagination and or turn it on and off. But is there any place in particular? I heard Jamaica was on here. Is there any place in particular you want to investigate to see how we were doing for our flood inundation latest conditions? Somebody want a backseat drive here?
So yes, this is Greg Lakis, and I'm from Jamaica. And it's really kind of fascinating to me because on that day, that's exactly where we spent a lot of our time, right in the center where the confluence is of the Ball Mountain Brook and the West River. And we had an evacuation in that area. And it would have, at the time, it would have been really helpful to have this type of map to show the forecast of where the river was coming down from the Ball Mountain Dam, just so we could make sure that we got all the right people evacuated at the right time. So I think, this is kind of exciting for me because I could see the application of it.
Yeah, and that was something that we had talked about at the August meeting. Is I looked more into which reservoirs are included in the mapping scheme and figuring out the flow downstream. And I think after our August meeting, I did request, it wasn't already in there, but I did request that Ball Mountain and Townsend get added to their scheme and the model to figure out how much water is coming in and estimate how much water might be coming out. So I think right now for this this July retrospective, it's not including that. It's probably just figuring out run of river. So hopefully in future iterations, I got our name on the list. So hopefully in future iterations that will be included too. So that'll be even more useful information.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
So one of the things that was in my my caveats in the 8,000 caveats in my presentation was about bridges, and I think the way that they did the initial modeling, and this maybe gets in the weeds a bit, but they did the initial modeling and they used digital elevation models from the USGS, and basically the digital elevation models had all the bridges built in, but when they used them as is, each bridge made a tiny little dam. And so the water was backing up behind each bridge as it tried to go downstream. And so their solution to that when they were doing the modeling for the entire United States was to remove every bridge. Just let the water free flow through there as if there were no bridge. That means that when they map it, it looks like this bridge is inundated. But the answer is we don't know without knowing. So Greg, you probably know. Is there a 0% chance that is this like a valley bridge that there's no way, or is it?
No, that's the main bridge coming into the village. And we were very fortunate because we lost that bridge during Irene. And in July, it performed admirably. We didn't have any damage. The fire department is right there at that bridge. We had no damage to the fire department. We had a lot of river damage right at that spot. But we were really fortunate.
I think I could switch there we go. I can switch the base map here too so we can see. But yeah, so there's not any guarantee when you look at this that just because it's crossing the road or crossing a bridge, that doesn't mean that bridge is going to be inundated with this first round. They're doing a lot of work in the background to try to make that more useful, but right now you should just know if a bridge is inundated, that doesn't necessarily mean the bridge is actually going to be inundated. I think we did some driving around. Let's see if I can make everybody really ill with my navigation here. We did some driving around by Brattleboro, and I think if I put the forecast back on again, like this bridge right here, right? It looks like that's inundated, and this one my recollection is this one is a billion feet off the ground is the approximate
Yeah,
height
that's
of that bridge,
interstate.
right? Yeah. So that's that. I mean, we're building arcs if that's getting inundated. So just take the water crossing bridges with whatever grains of salt or shakers of salt you need to. Is my pro tip on that one. Any other places you want me to nauseatingly drive around to? So this is the kind of information that'll be available on a real-time basis during flooding. So the latest conditions, that current mapping, that's available once an hour. And then again, the national water model that's updated every 6 hours. So might not be available for your flash flood headwater type situations, but as the water's working its way downstream, it should be available. And then I anticipate, as we see issues, I anticipate, driving around doing a dashboard survey to see how this, how did this do? How'd the mapping do? So any pictures that you have that have geolocation, geotags on them, anything like that after an event would be super helpful to try to, confirm or deny, this is where we had issues. This is not where we had issues, right? So if I can turn off the 5-day forecast. Anywhere else you want me to fly to? Don't be shy. I take requests. All right. So it won't look, this is my weird interface that I'm using to access this past data. So it won't look quite like that. Remember, you'll be on this viewer here, though you still can, do a bunch of things. You can, change your layers, change all sorts of other things. And also going to show you, this was from August or from April of last year. And this is what it would look like on the viewer. So you can see we just had the teensiest corner of southwestern Vermont was affected by flooding in April. Bill's nodding like, yes, this is what happened in Pownell. Yeah. So that was the River Forecast Center forecast. That was the National Water Model forecast from the 8th of April. Let's see what and that was the current conditions. So not too terribly different as far as what was being analyzed on the 8th of April. That
Certainly
that
looked
flood,
like that.
Yeah, it looked like that.
Yeah.
That's accurate. I'm trying to remember how to switch base layers on this one. I don't really care for the cartoon map background. I prefer the more of the Google Earth satellite view, but nope.
Hey, Britt, is there on the website or anything, are there videos that explain how to toggle from the base layers and things like that for some of my non-GIS savvy people like me? I'm still learning it. So
I think that we settled on I think we had asked headquarters for videos, and I think that they negotiated us down to info sheets, I think is where we landed. If I go to, let's see here. To go here, this operations page, everything related to this current rollout is all right here. Everything you could possibly want. So if there are viewer access instructions, maybe this is so this is this maybe what yes, this is what they talked us into. So no video, they did not make a video, but there is this this sheet where you can take a look.
Okay.
And
Thanks,
it kind of
Brett.
walks you through that. So I'll make sure to send you the link to this page this OWP/operations page, this bottom right corner of it has everything. There's a really great fact sheet. If you forget what the 3 flavors of FIM are, they're all listed right here at the bottom of this fact sheet. And you can, if you really want to get into the weeds, you can like check out these QR codes where each one has its own in-depth multi-page fact sheet if you really want to like totally nerd out about it. And then also if you have any feedback, I mean, these services are what the Weather Service considers experimental, which means we're collecting public feedback, and very much value what you have to say, because I can only rant about things for so long. They actually listen to you when you rant about things. So know that. This may be one of the few places where people actually listen to you when you rant about things. So take advantage. And if you have feedback, there's a survey right here. But also if you have feedback as far as after events, if you want to, if you want to send me pictures and we want to do screen grabs of what was being mapped, and you want to draw little circles and arrows and say it was good here or it wasn't good there, or that kind of thing. I'm open to whatever level of feedback you're willing to provide. It's all much appreciated. So, and then there's, if you really want to get into the weeds, there's this whole long frequently asked questions. I guess they anticipate people asking a lot of questions because this is a very long document. So feel free to rifle through this, or search in it if you have a particular question, or, just email me or give me a call. That's fine too. So I think generally everything that you might want or need related to flood inundation mapping, you could probably get to from this page here. That'll get you to the fact sheet. That'll get you to the frequently asked questions. It'll get you to that viewer access instructions, API access instructions if you're getting fancy, and then the survey. So hopefully that helps. I'm glad they finally added this. This is all happening as we request things. They add things to the website. So this is all very fluid, if you'll pardon the water pun. But if you have things that you want to see here or information that you think isn't properly covered, I'm happy to provide that as feedback to the powers that be. I'm not shy. So, but yeah, this should get you to the water viewer, and then messing around with the layers and how to get there. I think that's enough, but if not, let me know and I will ask someone, because obviously I can't even figure out how the heck to turn on all I want is the satellite view, and I can't figure out how to turn that on. So maybe somebody will figure that out. Mark my location. I want none of those things. So how's that? The panel was looking okay, Bill? You have any issues with it?
No, and I kind of look at it secondhand from the other side of the mountain in Stamford.
Got it.
But what we could see, kind of afterwards, trying to come up the highway, gives a fair idea on what people discussed locally.
Yeah, and I mean, this is our first round of this mapping too, and you can't see it as much on here, but you can probably see it more on here. I wouldn't tell this house that they're in the clear, right? Like, that's not the level of accuracy that we're at. Just because there's a line right here, I wouldn't bet the farm on it. So I think we're at neighborhood level accuracy. I don't think we're at house to house level accuracy as far as using this, but I think the general feedback that we got from emergency management on a national level was anything is better than nothing, and then we just keep making it better as we go forward. So that's sort of the goal here. And you all are part of the making it better as we go forward. Yeah, Alyssa, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you can discuss with these folks how and when, like, and maybe I'm wrong in my understanding, but since this is event-based mapping specific to the event, when will you have the data, and how would you suggest is the best way to utilize it, considering when you have it?
I mean, I would say during an event, if you want to look at the 5-day forecast, or if you think, if we're already sending out our email blasts saying there might be flooding in the next few days, that might be a time to call it up and see if it's latched on to anything. That's probably when I'll be calling it up to see if it's out to lunch or if it's actually grabbing anything and suggesting any kind of inundation mapping. And then in the week after any kind of event, as far as making improvements to it, just sort of beyond the real-time usage, I would say anytime in the week afterwards, you can look at the maximum inundation extent. I can pull up, it might not be available to the public, but I can pull up the last, I think, 14 days of latest analysis, so we can get a handle on how high the mapping had the river, and then we could maybe take a look and see how high it actually got. So there's sort of two modes, I guess. There's like forecast and ongoing event mode, and then there's post-analysis mode where we try to figure out how it did. Did I answer your question? Maybe?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I'm writing down another link to send you. Any other questions, thoughts? I mean, we're making this up as we go along. I mean, this is science. So, your input is very much welcome. If you're able to, pull these maps up on the viewer when things are ongoing. I guess the other key to note here is, see how it says Zoom level 18 plus? There's a Zoom number down here. And so you may think that there's supposed to be mapping going on, but you might be too far zoomed out to see it. So just take note of that too, is that you got to zoom in this is 18 here. So anything at this level or further in, you'll start seeing it if it's available. So keep that in mind too, this Zoom level 18 plus. Though probably, I anticipate getting phone calls from people saying, I can't, there's flooding ongoing and I can't see it. And it's because people are zoomed out. So that's fine. We can sort that out during the event.
Britt, in using these maps, could you walk us through the process if you're anticipating, for like EMDs were anticipating flooding in their towns and trying to map out possible evacuation zones? So this was a question that we got a lot during the July flooding, and at VEM didn't have great answers to in some contexts. Would that involve looking at the 5-day forecast, or what kind of progression of layers would you suggest for looking for that kind of information?
Yep. Yeah, I think the 5-day forecast for that is your best bet for trying to understand that. There is some hope on the horizon that potentially at some point there may be static layers that come out of this as well, but that progress has been really slow. So I don't want to promise anything that I can't deliver on. So for now, the dynamic is what's available. Yeah. So that's about the best you're going to get as far as planning. And again, if you're looking at that, this national water model 5-day max forecast is what you're probably going to be looking at. Since, let me see here, river observations and forecasts. Let's see here. So these are the all status. So these are the forecast points that are in southern Vermont. So there aren't that many, right? There's just a handful. These are the only places where this RFC 5-day max is going to be available when there's flooding, is downstream of these points. So for everything else, there's MasterCard and your national water model 5-day forecast. But that'll be readily apparent when things are going on, because you'll be able to toggle them on and off. But yeah, the 5-day max forecast is really for the national water model is probably where your best bet is going to be as far as planning for the next 5 days. But again, if our rainfall forecast is out of whack, then these forecasts are going to be out of whack. So something to be aware of. And that's usually something that we're messaging in our, hopefully you're all signed up for our email, our our email blasts for when there's potential flooding or other hazardous weather coming up. So yeah, once we start sending those out, I think that's probably the time to start looking. And then, you know, keep in mind that, again, just because there's water crossing a bridge doesn't necessarily mean that water is going to go over that bridge for your planning and evacuation purposes. So still, I mean, we're getting there, but I think it's still of limited use, I guess. Is that enough hedging for you, Tyga?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
I like to hedge. Yeah, that's professional hazard is the hedging.
Great. Thanks so much.
Any other questions while I have these up? I mean, feel free if you're messing around with stuff, you know, in all your spare time, because I know you guys all have plenty of spare time. I see gig many hat, Whitingham many hats there, so I know you all have plenty of spare time to just be looking at these maps ahead of time. But if you do happen to be looking at them and have questions, by all means, I'll put in that email our 24/7 number if you don't already have it. You can always call our office and ask questions. We're learning this as you are, so. Go back to that cartoon. Anywhere else you want to look at? I don't know. This is the end of the you know, the predetermined program. I just kind of wanted to show you all what it looks like. And in the actual viewer, sorry if I'm making anybody dizzy here. In the actual viewer, you'll be able to change the opacity. So you'll actually be able to, it'll be sort of semi-transparent as opposed to this, which is super ugly and not transparent at all. So you'll sort of be able to see your infrastructure beneath it, and the actual normal channel, that kind of thing. So this is the viewer again, collapsed folders. Any other questions, comments, concerns, snide remarks? All right. I guess I'll turn it back over to you, Dara.
All right. For my new EMDs, we'll make sure that if you're not getting the weather alerts, we'll make sure that you guys know how to get signed up for those, so that you guys will be ahead of the game should some strong weather come through, which it will, probably sooner rather than later.
Oh yeah, may I add too that we're on Slack now too, if that's something that you have on your phone and feel like fiddling around with. You can message a forecaster directly if you're in our Slack chat room. So I can, if you want, I can send information on how to sign up for that if folks are interested.
And I think that if you go to BCRC's website, I think that the previous meeting minutes might have that as well.
Right,
and I'll go through and review and make sure that they're there, and I can share that out as well.
Awesome.
For those who are interested. Awesome. Thanks, Britt. If we Britt will send out contact information, so that way if you guys have additional questions, like she said, if you're fiddling around in there and you need some help, you'll be able to get that. But we will say thank you, Britt. Don't feel like you have to hang around for the rest of the meeting. If you have to hop off, that is okay. But we're going to head into updates, and we're going to start with Tyga. Tyga, do you have any updates from Vermont Emergency Management?
I don't have anything burning right now, no. But happy to take questions.
Hey, Britt, you're still sharing your screen. There we go. Thanks, bro.
I just realized that I was going to send an email to you with all the stuff I promised. And I was like, oh, they're going to watch me send this email. Yep, carry on.
They can take screenshots.
Perfect.
All right, thanks, Britt. Any questions for Tyga? Any emergency management stuff? All right. Alyssa, do you want to do a quick update from Wyndham?
Sure. Yeah, so thanks everyone for being here tonight. Just a couple of things. I did put together our annex, our REMC annex for the Wyndham REMC, and so that basically is just a list of our members and a list of emergency resources in every town. So it's really just a resource listing for Vermont emergency management, and that'll be updated yearly. So every REMC has one of those, and I guess I should have had ours done a while ago, but it's done now.
You're a step ahead of Bennington, but we're gonna get there. Where do
Actually,
you
no,
share that, Alyssa?
yours is done. I copied off.
Is it? I
Yeah,
have to find it.
Yeah. yeah.
Where do you share that from? Is that on your website or?
I mean, it's just something that VEM had. I can send you what we put together. I can send you yours. And then I don't know if Tyga wants to talk or can say how they're utilizing those, but they're annexes to, I believe, like the statewide LEPC plan. So yeah. And speaking of the statewide LEPC, so that is a group that replaced the regional LEPCs in terms of management of tier 2 information and dealing with all the hazmat aspects of EPRA, which is how this group originated. And anyways, since we don't have a rep for the Wyndham region to be on that group, I've been attending the last couple of meetings. If anyone is interested in learning more about that or considering being the rep for the Wyndham region REMC on the statewide LEPC, then you can please reach out to me, and I'm happy to hand off the reins. But it's really great. One thing that they discussed in that meeting that was of interest is that they're doing fire department trainings for lithium-ion battery fires. So if your fire department has not received training like that and you would like to, you can reach out, send an email to Dara or myself, and we can connect you with how to get that training. Dara, you can reach out to me if anyone gets in touch with you. But yeah, I strongly encourage all fire departments to take advantage of that, because these batteries are everywhere now and getting more and more common. Electric vehicles, electric bikes, laptops, cell phones, all this stuff. And yeah, the fires are pretty insane that happen with them. So they're not your typical fire. Other than that, be on the lookout for in the next year, before or around our next meeting, when we'll have LEMP information coming forward. I plan to try and roll in some of the kind of phone tree vulnerable population stuff that we had worked on prior years into an LEMP tool. That's a goal of mine for next year. And yeah, other than that, we've got a lot of floodplain map updating in the coming years all over the state. So yeah, it's kind of what I got. Got a lot of stuff going on, but for the group, I think that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Alyssa. For Bennington County, for my crew, we kind of talked about this. I think most of you were actually all of the Bennington crew were at the exercise that we did with Tyga at the end of October. So we kind of went over, what my plan is for the beginning of 2024, which is to reactivate the REMC and get kind of get in order again. The first thing I'm going to do, so keep your eyes open, is I'm going to send out a survey for the best times for the meetings. And so that we can get as many of our EMDs together as possible for that. So that will go out either tomorrow or the next day. So just keep your eyes open. Please respond so I can make that schedule fit as many of the EMDs for Bennington as possible. And that's pretty much the only news that I have. If you would like to get involved with the LAPC, just like in Windham County, I have to be there. I missed the last meeting because I was at a conference, but if anybody would be interested in stepping up and doing that and being a representative from Bennington County, awesome. Let me know. And that's all I have for tonight. And we are 6 minutes from the end. So just some reminders, send any topic suggestions that you have for future meetings, trainings that you want to see. Wyndham obviously sent to Alyssa, Bennington sent to me, and we'll work those in. Is everyone getting the latest emergency management newsletter? If you're not, let me know and I'll get you hooked up. Okay. And does anybody have any questions or anything that Alyssa, Tyga, and I can answer? Anything pressing? Anything you must know? Go ahead, Bill.
Just a thanks to you and Alyssa for coordinating this together. And it's so much better to have some participation and some outreach possibilities with other EMDs that have certainly been lacking in Bennington for a good while.
Wow. We are going to fix that, Bill.
Okay.
If I have to individually call everybody, which I did on the last round, that's what I'll do. I'm very persistent. So Wyndham, you're welcome that I don't work for you. Otherwise, you'd be hearing my voice on the phone. For my guys, I'm so sorry, but I'll be calling you all the time. Anything else from anybody?
No, I just want to say thanks to Dara for partnering on this, and to Britt for, I don't know if she's still around, but this was, made sense with our Albany office forecast for both of our areas to do this together. So anytime you guys find it makes sense, we are happy to join you.
Awesome. Thanks, Alyssa. Thank you, Tyga, for joining us. Next REMC sessions will be sent out probably individually. Mine will be based on survey results that I get back in the next couple of weeks from my crew. Alyssa, do you have a date set yet for yours?
I do. Let me see. I think it's gonna be in February. I believe February 20th. I think I have to move these to the third Tuesdays because we have an overlap for a meeting on the second Tuesday. So look for something from me for in and around that date.
Perfect. All right, Tyga, anything to add?
No, thank you so much. And
all right,
Britt, thank you. This was really helpful. This is a really exciting tool.
Yes, thanks, Britt. Guys, we're wrapping up. I'm giving you 3 minutes of your life back. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Enjoy your 3 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.